The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. We got ourselves a fine program for you, viewers and listeners. I'm excited for all the stuff we have to cover. Great topics this week, really hard-hitting, but also some fun stuff in there. A lot of cool things that we're going to be going into, and a great guest. Actually, let me rephrase that. Two great guests this week, because joining us in the second segment is going to be Damian Griman and Anthony Leo of 800-Pound Gorilla Media, an acclaimed distributor, marketer of stand-up comedy specials. I love the guests who are involved in the stand-up comedy industry. We've had a couple really terrific guests in this space. We had Helen Hong on the show a couple years back. We've had just so many fantastic comedians. We don't get as many as I liked. I'd love to get more of them, and hopefully, getting Damian and Anthony can be the start of this kind of trend. And it's an exciting development because I love talking to these people. We talk to a lot of indie musicians on this show, but I think another art form that is really a branch of indie creation worth celebrating are stand-up comedians. And I think the creator revolution that we're going through right now, the revolution in distribution and creation and marketing and promotion, it is benefiting comedians every bit as much as it's benefiting musicians. And so I'm excited to talk to Damian and Anthony from 800-Pound Gorilla Media all about those changes that we're experiencing in this industry and how they affect stand-up comedy, because there's going to be a lot of great lessons for indie creators to absorb from hearing all about that. So that's going to be a blast. But this whole show is going to be pretty dang top-notch for many reasons, including our co-host this week, Katie Zaccardi's joining us. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Ryan.
Katie, the NFL starts this weekend.
And you think I'm the best person.
You are the best person, because you know what the NFL season means, Katie? It means it's season 2 of the Travis and Taylor show.
Okay, that's true.
I mean, do you remember how much fun you and I had last season with the Travis and Taylor chronicling of this beautiful burgeoning love?
Did you see, though, that their breakup PR script leaked on TikTok?
I saw something about a Reddit post, and they said it was a forgery.
Yeah, I'm certain it was made up, but basically a thing went around TikTok that was like, oh my gosh, Taylor and Travis broke up, and this is their PR playbook. But I think there was a photo of her from tonight going to a game, so that's looking up for us. That's looking up for us and for the next few months of podcasting.
Yeah. The writers want to get at least another season or two out of this relationship. They're not going to break them up this fast.
I would think. Yeah.
I mean, we have to see an engagement this season, right? This is the engagement year. I mean, that has to be the final episode. That Week 17 engagement. Well, Ring by 17.
Do you think they're gonna have an engagement and then break up, or you think they're not gonna break up at all? My dog is clawing at me because he wants my food, so he's making an appearance.
Oh, hey, doggy. Well, what a beautiful dog.
He is a beautiful
what a sweetheart. You know what? That dog could stay here as long as he or she likes. I'm not saying that it isn't going to end at some point. It could absolutely end in a breakup, but they're not gonna let it at least not get to an engagement first. An engagement has to happen. We've all invested too much into this relationship to not at least see a proposal.
Worst case scenario, they break off their engagement and then it's a really good album.
Oh my God. The album we're going to get out of a broken engagement.
I don't want to see that. I think that it would suck for her. It would be really sad and so on and so forth. But it wouldn't be bad for the music. I do wish her happiness, though. and I hope that they find it and win more Super Bowls and stuff like that, and blah 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 sports.
I wish them nothing but the best as well, because they are really cute together. Like, I mean, it's just such a classic, like, cheerleader, captain of the football team dynamic. And, how can you not root for that? I mean, it's really, really delightful. And, oh, okay.
There we go. Yeah.
How cute
absolutely.
is today's outfit? That's what she's wearing at the Chiefs game right now.
It's amazing. I mean, her hair and lip combo just never disappoint. Like,
Oh.
it
You're
looks
not
so good.
talking about the boots, because that was my favorite part.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, those
and-
above the knee thigh
And
highs. Wow.
and
Red
and those
heel.
matching the red lippy, like, we love
But
it.
it's the
Oh, it's so
Kansas
good.
City colors, man.
Yeah. I mean, we're not even talking about the jean corset. I mean, every layer of it really. And I'm not always into her fashion, but her game fashion has really been on point. And I'm looking forward to more of that as well, because that's really the only thing I care about.
It's going to be a magical football season. All right, let us now commence with the very natural transition of Taylor Swift talk to federal indictments. Because that's going to be our first story this week. On September 4th, Katie, the Justice Department announced that it has indicted an individual named Michael Smith in connection with allegedly leading a fraudulent enterprise to defraud music streaming services of over $10 million. From the announcement, quote, Michael Smith allegedly produced hundreds of thousands of songs with artificial intelligence and utilized automatic features to repeatedly stream the music to generate unlawful royalties to the tune of $10 million. The defendant's alleged scheme played upon the integrity of the music industry by a concerted attempt to circumvent the streaming platform's policies. Now, what makes this story interesting to me, Katie, is not that somebody has tried to, illegally obtain streams to kind of steal royalties from streaming services, right? We've seen this before. Like, most artists, you get some offer in the email from some company that's like, I'm going to promote your song.
Yeah.
But really all they're going to do is just have some bot download your song a bunch of times
Yeah.
to get you a bunch of fake royalties. But this is so much more sophisticated than that. Because what this model allegedly does, and it's all alleged because, innocent until proven guilty and all that, is this person realized that if I try to just create a bunch of bots that will just stream one song over and over, then Spotify is going to catch that. Apple Music's going to catch that because they're going to say, hey, why does this song that nobody's heard of, that nobody cares about, that's not exactly Ed Sheeran, have 10 billion streams?
Yeah.
Right? So what this guy did, allegedly, was have AI generate tons of songs, like a bunch of AI-generated songs, flooded Spotify with those songs, and then had their bots do a bunch of streams across all of these different AI-generated songs so that none of them got a bunch of streams that would tip off the streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
But
Really smart.
Also, it took something that was just a violation of Spotify's terms of service and turned it into a violation of federal law that could land this person in prison.
Wait, I do have a question though, and I apologize to any listeners if this is a dumb question, but which part specifically is against their terms of service? Is it the AI songs or is it the bot streaming?
It is the bot streaming. So Spotify has clear policies that say that you are not allowed to use bots to basically, stream a song a bunch of times and then collect the royalties from
See,
it.
for some reason, I didn't realize that. I mean, it makes sense, but because it still happens, I just assumed that. I guess I assumed that wasn't the case, but yeah, that makes sense that that's part of their policy. And I am sorry this man was so smart, but I'm not. I mean, it's good that he got caught, but that was sneaky.
It was sneaky. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, he didn't do it alone, by the way. According to the indictment, there was a team of people involved in this, and one of the co-conspirators was actually the CEO of an AI music company, and so that was the person that was creating all of the AI-generated songs for this other guy to post on Spotify, who then, had all of these bots creating fake accounts to stream those AI-generated songs a bunch of times. It's pretty wild, right? And, to me, what I think, there are many things that are interesting about this story. One of which is this is the first time, to my knowledge, we've seen this kind of practice of fake streams to get royalties that you don't deserve. This is the first time I've seen the Justice Department step in, right? It's always like when artists have done this kind of stuff before, the worst thing that's always happened to you is you just get your Spotify account shut down, right? And now, you get your account shut down, your songs get taken away. And that is a lot tragic for a lot of artists, because I've heard a lot of cases of artists where they put a song on Spotify, they get an email from some company that says, hey, I'll promote your song for you. Just give me some money. You give them some money and they don't actually promote your song. They just have bots do fake streams. And then that artist gets in trouble with Spotify and their account gets shut down. And they didn't mean to break the rules. They thought they were just hiring a promoter. Mm-hmm. But that's just that's not a legal problem. That's just a problem that you have with Spotify. But this is the first time that I've seen where now if you engage in these kind of fake streaming practices, you could actually get the feds on your case. You could actually wind up in jail, in prison, facing indictment. Particularly scary stuff. So let's see here. A listener or viewer writes in, so it's not the AI-generated music that the case hinges on, but the AI was streaming said music. Well, actually, it's both, right? Like
Why
AI,
not both?
So there's two bots happening here, right? You have, I'm going to sound like such a doddering old man explaining this because I'm not a tech expert, but in one corner, you have one set of bots that are generating fake songs and then flooding Spotify with those fake songs. And in the other corner, you have another set of bots that is creating fake accounts that are then streaming those fake songs. Mm-hmm. And you need both for this plan to work, because if all you have are bots that are just all streaming one song, then that song is going to get billions of streams. Spotify is going to catch it and say, why does this song that nobody's ever heard of have as many streams as Ed Sheeran? Mm-hmm. That's not right. And then they'll take your royalties away. And so you need both sets of AI for this to work. And apparently the feds have a term for that. It's called fraud. And now this person is in a great deal of trouble. And so I think one lesson to learn from all of this is, look, we've been saying for years on this podcast, don't do fake streaming. You can get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Now I need to triple down on that advice and say, don't do fake streaming. Apparently now the feds think that this is something that, you should be indicted for. So don't dabble in these dark arts. I don't want anybody losing their freedom and facing jail time. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, whenever a story comes out, Katie, about fake streams and stealing royalties from companies, which by the way means stealing money from every other artist, right? Because there's one pool of royalties. So if one group is doing illegal, immoral things to steal royalties for themselves, that means every other artist is getting less royalties. Right. So it hurts all of us. And every time one of these stories comes out, I need to do the same. I get to do the same speech that I give every single time, which is, we can solve these problems if we just adopt user-centric royalties. This, I just get to give this speech every time, but it's gotten to the point where it's every single problem that streaming services has can be solved with user-centric royalties. The reason why this can even happen is because the way royalty payouts work with streaming services is that everybody's streaming money, all the streaming revenue goes into a single pot. And then your cut of that pot is based on your proportion of how many times your songs were streamed relative to the whole. So if your music was streamed 5% of the time relative to all the music on Spotify, you get 5% of the money. That approach leaves the platform vulnerable to fraud, because it can create a situation where a bunch of bots can create fake accounts, do a bunch of countless fake streams, mm-hmm. and then steal an increasing proportion of all that streaming money. Mm-hmm. How do you fix that problem? You do user-centric royalties, where now instead of having the whole pot be where the royalties come from, you treat each user's $9.99 subscription fee, $12.99 subscription fee as its own individual pot. And so if Katie Zaccardi does nothing but listen to Taylor Swift for a whole month I'm sure you've been there before, particularly during football season. Then Taylor Swift gets all of your money less Spotify's cut, right?
Yeah.
And if you do it that way, which a few streaming services have started to embrace this approach, but not the big ones like Spotify yet, you basically eliminate the possibility of fraud, because now you can't create a bunch of fake bot accounts that just, relentlessly, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times a day stream a bunch of songs. Why this is not being mandated by the law, I don't know. Why streaming services aren't embracing this approach en masse, I don't know. But if we're serious about combating fraud in this industry so that real artists aren't having real money taken out of their pockets, that's how you fix it.
Yeah. What is Spotify waiting for? And have you proposed this to them in writing? Because I do feel like it's a really good idea. And I also I think it's important that these crackdowns become more public. Somebody in our comments watching live said, is this bank fraud? And I don't know the answer to that explicitly, but it just reminds me of something else that is going on TikTok this week. I don't know if you've seen it, Ryan.
Is this going to be the Chase thing?
It is going to be the Chase thing.
Yes, oh my God, let's talk about the Chase thing. This is amazing.
It's crazy. So some idiotic people, or maybe it started with one guy, I don't even know, but it definitely became a trend where somebody was basically telling people, here's how you can basically get,
what do they call it? Like a Chase hack, a money hack?
A glitch.
A glitch. Thank you. That's what it was. It was a Chase glitch.
A glitch. Like, this Chase glitch will get you as much money as you need. Like, that was the vibe. And
they call it like an infinite money glitch or something like that.
In the real world, we call that check fraud.
Yeah.
But in the TikTok land, for people who didn't know any better, apparently, they were basically telling people to write a check to yourself, cash it, and then close your account, wait for it to deposit, and then kind of take the money and close
take the money out before they realize that it's a fake check.
Now, obviously, what's happening
it's check kiting.
And Chase Bank is like, okay, we see you, and by the way, we're going to reverse this transaction and also take all the rest of your money.
Yeah. And also, we have your social security number. We know who you are.
We can report you to the feds. And by the way, now you've made a TikTok about it, incriminating yourself. So we pretty much know exactly what you did ×2. I feel like what was really funny for me is that I wasn't seeing any of the videos of the people being like, you should do this, or look at this glitch. It was just people being like, are you guys dumb? This is fraud. I don't know why this is making me slap happy right now, but it's just so funny because everyone was like, okay, let's take a moment to acknowledge that there are no glitches, there are no hacks, there are no this is literally just fraud, it's illegal. And I think that it's a point in our culture where we need to just stop for a second, and we need to maybe let people get in trouble when they're doing bad things so that people stop doing stupid things.
How wild of a time must it be to be a U.S. attorney right now? You had to think, back in the day, these people had to go up against mobsters, Al Capone, really dangerous, scary people. And now, your entire day is going after people creating AI generated songs and, making TikToks of them committing bank fraud. That is now the modern day work of a federal prosecutor. It's wild.
It sounds like fun though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, comparatively.
Well, because what it means is we have the Justice Department has to stop hiring these old grizzled lawyers who still type with 2 fingers, and just hire a bunch of young Gen Z and millennial lawyers who actually know how all this technology works, and has a TikTok account so they can catch these people doing this making videos of them committing bank fraud against Chase.
I saw, just to cap this off, I saw that someone had made a post that was oh no, look, it's my account's all in the negative. It was negative $30,000. And then negative $100,000. He made a TikTok being like, "Oh no," and Chase Bank reposted the video. Like they like repost, and you can share
Yeah.
videos to your followers. They like shared the video to their followers, which is so funny.
No way.
So yeah. Anyway, do we need better education and financial literacy? Yes. Do we also need people to like stop trying to con systems and we just need better systems? Also, yes.
Yeah. Maybe the problem is that this generation that engage in this infinite money glitch, they were too young to have remembered seeing the movie Catch Me If You Can. Right? Like that movie might have come out either before they were born or they were too young to have seen it. So they didn't like get to watch the movie we watched, like explaining what check fraud is and why you can't do it. And so they don't have the education.
And alternatively, they did grow up with Sims where you could just go mother load, and you have infinite money. So it was so funny because when I heard people calling that, like immediately I was thinking of Sims, and I'm like, do they really think there's any possible way there could be a real life Sims moment where you're just like press a button, get money? Because if it's too good to be true, it's because it is.
Yeah. Man, that's thank you for reminding me of that. This has been such a crazy week of so many things happening in the media that I completely forgot about the Chase infinite money glitch story. Like it was only like 3 or 4 days ago, and it seems like it was 3 weeks ago because of all things that's happened.
Yeah.
I got another story here that I thought is far less scary. Nobody's going to jail in this story, Katie, but is pretty cool one from Billboard magazine talking about the rise of fan pages, which is it's something that I've definitely seen a lot more often from fans, and I participate in a number of fan pages for the things that I like. And basically what it's talking about is how the music industry and other creative industries have started to embrace fan pages. A lot of artists, Katie, don't have the time, don't have the energy to post regularly enough, to post interestingly enough to keep your fans' insatiable appetite for content satiated, right? Like your fans want to see stuff about you all the time. And they don't just want original content, right? They want memes. They want tribute videos. They want posts, just post, write essays about you, right? Stuff that you and your team, you can't possibly make enough stuff for your fans. And so what we're seeing a lot more are fan pages getting created. Sometimes they're created by the artist. Sometimes they're created by just fans of that artist or consort groups of fans that all get together and say, let's create a page on Facebook, on X, on Reddit, all about how much we love this artist. And it is these are communities that emerge that will curate content from different sources all about that particular artist and put them all in one place and create this really cool community for people to engage and share their love of this artist. I'll just read this quick snippet here from the article. The music industry has become increasingly interested in the marketing potential of fan pages, which can churn out a lot of posts, song snippets, concert footage, backstage shenanigans, and more, but don't cost much or require the actual artist to do more work. Some fan pages are started by ardent followers, others by the artist's own team or label. Either way, they function like having a media outlet at your disposal at all times. Fan pages can tell the story of an artist without the artist having to be the voice. That's the other cool thing about fan pages is when the artist needs to get a message out to your fans, just post right on the fan page. And then because it's going to get right to the people who need to hear it the most.
So I'm curious, Ryan, where are you following your fan pages? Like what platforms would you think?
I would say most of my fan pages are, I'm following them on Reddit.
Okay.
As well as Facebook. I think, Facebook tends to be sort of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit for a lot of folks to set up fan pages because you already have people there and it's already a platform where people are expecting to be a community. That audience skews older, so maybe the younger artists and who have younger fans aren't going to congregate on Facebook. Yeah. But I know that's a popular one for, old dudes like me.
It's interesting you bring it up because I like the sentiment of this, but I also feel like I don't really follow fan pages directly, but I definitely see them in my TikTok feed because I will see like Chappell Roan stuff or Sabrina Carpenter stuff in my TikTok feed, and it's not posted by any of them. It's literally just fan curated content.
Mhm.
And I haven't like paid close enough attention. Like they're definitely not all from the same accounts. Sometimes the videos I see are just like from various fan accounts, which I think can also be very powerful. But then you have people like Taylor Swift, who has like Taylor Nation, where that's a very streamlined fan account, right? That's like, it's sort of like her team, but it's sort of like a fan account. And it's not her, but it, allows for, again, the messages to get out. But what I was going to say was what it also brings up, though, is this really interesting conversation that's happening around fan culture because of Chappell Roan. I haven't listened to the last few episodes of the podcast, but have you talked about that yet?
We have not. Honestly, I have been saving that discussion for you because I knew you have a lot of things to say
sir.
about sort of the changing nature of Chappell Roan's fan base and how it's causing Chappell Roan to kind of feel some stress and some consternation.
Do we have a few minutes? I can like give a brief
for
synopsis.
this. Absolutely.
So basically, for anyone who's unfamiliar with Chappell Roan, what are you, living under a rock at this point? Get out from there and go stream her music. But she's like a very, very up and coming musician. She was growing traction last year with a pretty solid but indie fan base. And then in this past year, she's grown exponentially. We've talked about her before. But what happened a few weeks ago was essentially a fan of hers, or multiple fans, I'm not quite clear on that, but I think one fan in particular, like, basically became a stalker, learned the place that her family lives, learned where her sister works, was sort of like following around. And with Chappell's growth, it also became clear that fans were, just seeing her in public and asking a lot of her. Like, it's one thing, I think, to say hi to artists or celebrities. It's another thing to be like, can I have a hug? Or maybe even just going for a hug, or maybe even just outreaching your hand and touching them without like that consent. And obviously she's newer to all of this. She's a newer big artist, and she made a post that was like, this is not okay. Like, you cannot do this. This is absolutely not okay. Just because I am a public person does not mean that you can do this. Like, people are stalking my family. They're following me around. They're touching me. Like, I will not allow this. This is not okay. And there was a really interesting reaction because most people were extremely supportive. I personally think that this is a message that we need to say more of. Like, we have a very parasocial relationship with celebrities. And I think a lot of people think just because someone's putting music out there, they signed up to like potentially have a certain level of fame. And like, if you want a certain level of fame, there's drawbacks to that. And while that's true, who says that the drawbacks have to be that people can touch you and stalk you and follow you? Like, that's stupid. And we as a society dictate that. We create that norm by what we allow. All you have to do is not tolerate that for it to just not become the norm, and for people to know that the norm is to act respectful and not be creepy, right? So, and most people like feel that sentiment, but there definitely were a lot of people who were like, you're famous, like you should be lucky, you should be grateful. She just got famous, she can't even handle the fame, like she's gonna basically crack and her career is gonna end because she like can't handle the pressure of being famous. And I think it's probably a little bit of both. Like, I mean, she's been touring nonstop. She's probably overwhelmed. That definitely makes you less tolerable to any sorts of weird things like that when you're like extra stressed. But I feel like it's a conversation that we need to have. And the reason I bring it up is because it's very much about fan culture. And I think some fans, there's a fine line between super fan and super creep. And like, some of these fan pages and fan people who like lead these can be really very odd and can cross that line. But I think if we can talk more about this and like set those boundaries and uphold those boundaries, it can allow for a really great place where you have these super fans who are creating another community or supporting a community of your people, of an artist's people, while still like honoring the artist's safety and boundaries and things like that. So that's my TED talk
It's
for
important.
today.
I wish I had a clear answer on a path forward for how we address that. Like I for a long time I was always of the view that, you know, passionate fans and sometimes fans that are a little too passionate was just an occupational hazard of being famous.
Yeah.
And it's the price you pay, and, you know, and you can just sort of deal with it. And I held that view for a long time, and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't particularly sympathetic to artists who would stress over that. And then Christina Grimmie happened.
Yep.
And that completely, and, you know, I realized in that moment how incredibly wrong I was.
Yeah.
And it was such a blind spot for me. And, you know, now I, you know, should have realized then, and now I know now, like, you know, these people are human. And,
Yeah.
you know, working as, and representing a lot of artists has, you know, even more solidified that. And it's gotten to the point where, you know, though I represent artists in my legal practice, it's, you know, I wouldn't want to be them.
Mhm.
You know, that kind of fame, particularly when you get to like Chappell Roan's level of fame, seems terrifying.
Yeah.
It is not something that I would wish upon my child.
Yeah.
You know, if you know, if I'm like listening down the hall one day and my son is like singing perfectly, I'm going to start to get pretty stressed out. Because yeah, fans can't be controlled, and they seem to feel entitled to increasingly high levels of access. And, you know, I would love to see, I'd love to know what the path forward might be, and how maybe fan pages can maybe even play a role in that, because if these fan pages can sort of enforce a fan culture amongst the community that says, look, we love this artist, but we also want this artist to be happy and healthy and well-adjusted, and we're not going to be insane to this artist. We're going to appreciate them, but we're also going to respect their space. We're also going to treat them like a person. And anybody who doesn't do that, we are going to express our displeasure towards you.
Mhm.
Maybe these fan pages can be a force for good in that regard. But I sympathize with Chappell Roan. This is a terrifying time to be an artist in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that like what you said about the culture is really important, because I think it's number one, it's up to the artist for being loud about their boundaries. And that's why I think people were taken aback from Chappell, but that's personally why I love her, is because she's just like, no, are you kidding me? No, like just no. Whereas a lot of people do feel like, oh, well, I'm so lucky to be here. I just need to be grateful and suck it up. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, I feel like this is just sort of another level of like a mental health discussion, basically, where it's like, just because that's the norm now doesn't mean it needs to be the norm. Like, you are, as an artist, are allowed to take care of yourself and have boundaries. But yeah, I think having fan culture to maybe change things. I mean, even artists don't really, I feel like people don't ask for autographs anymore. They ask for selfies. Yeah. They ask to get really close into your space. You know, maybe somebody doesn't, I know I don't want to take a picture every day of my life when I'm just out in the world, not on stage, not performing in their case. Like, I think that there are some simple things that we can do that we would do to people we don't know, aka just like act respectful, that can help this problem a ton. But yeah, I feel like fan pages also have a lot of power to, number one, not be exposing information that goes a little too far, not be exposing where people's family members are or were or work or live or whatever, and not be exposing personal details. And then to also maybe set a standard of like, hey, this is how we can interact with this artist in a way that they feel comfortable with, like, and kind of ride with that. But I guess we'll see what happens.
I can't believe we have to transition from this like very heavy, serious discussion to an interview with two guys who own a stand-up comedy company. That's
sorry.
Well, thankfully we have a commercial break in between to cleanse our palates a bit, but an important discussion though. We're going to take two. We'll be right back here on Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan Kairalla, PA. Ryan Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Thanks, Ryan. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Thank you all for checking us out wherever you check us out, particularly for the folks who are checking us out right now on the live stream. I am lurking. I am looking at the comments you guys are posting on the different live streaming platforms. I love the discussions I'm seeing. It all seems very sophisticated and erudite. I would say that what's going on in our comment section right now on our show, way better than you're going to see in most Twitch comment sections. So I'm loving this. Our comment section's got like a top hat and a monocle right now.
And shout out to Daniel who said Katie is right about this. And
you didn't even read the rest of it. That's all you needed to hear.
I just stopped there.
Wherever you're having that discussion, if you're checking us out on the live streaming services, we're so glad you are, whether it's on our main live streaming partner, volume.com, or on Facebook, or on LinkedIn, or on Twitch, or wherever it is. You can also check us out on all the major podcasting platforms and on SiriusXM 145. We are so glad that you are checking out this program wherever you're checking us out, and thank you in advance for telling a friend. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week.
Damien and Anthony walking in the light. From an 800-pound gorilla, what a sight. Comedy in their hearts, laughter unites. Standing specials turning dark to bright. Break the business, let's all shout. Damien and Anthony, there's no doubt. Laughter echoes, crowds spellbound. Breaking in the joy to that sound.
Our guests this week are the co-founders of 800-Pound Gorilla Media, producers and distributors of hit comedy specials from Matt Rife, Nick Offerman, David Cross, Kelsey Cook, and many more. Recently, 800-Pound Gorilla announced that it was moving into scripted content with the upcoming re-release of seasons 1 through 3 and the premiere of season 4 of the TV series Greg in L.A. You can find out more about our guest work by visiting 800poundgorillamedia.com. We are happy to welcome Damian Greiman and Anthony Leo on to Break the Business. Hello to you both.
Thanks, guys.
Hey. Oh my gosh. So off the bat, I have to say, loving the sophisticated camera setup. Normally when we have two guests, they're popping in from two different streams, but you guys have like the cuts, like, you know, same box, but you're just rotating between. Whoa, there. whoa, there's bam. My goodness, there's Anthony, there's Damian, one after. Oh my God, I love it. I love it. You guys are bringing the tech.
Yeah, this is our podcast trailer that we rarely get a chance to use for podcasts. So it's great to be on an actual podcast with you both.
Wait, did you say it's a podcast trailer?
It is.
So describe it. Like, is it hooked up to a pickup truck? Like, what makes it, like, what kind of trailer are we talking about here?
Well, we had an Airstream, and turns out that doesn't fit inside of our actual office. So we had a smaller one. There's a company in Nashville that builds these custom. Sometimes they'll use them for pizza joints or coffee shops, and they kind of get towed around. So we built a podcast trailer that we could tow to comedy festivals, host live podcasts, live streams, things like that. And when it's not in use, it sits in here, and we use it for video calls and Zooms.
So you just have like a place on wheels to do Zoom calls.
Yeah.
But I like this though. Like, so you could, you know, it's, if you're actually using it for its intended purpose more often, you could go to venues like comedy shows or convention centers or whatever, and you could say to people, hey, I want to have you on our podcast. And instead of using like whatever crappy travel setup we're going to set up on this card table here, we're going to bring you into our trailer, which is already set up to do a whole podcast, and quality is going to be great.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things we kind of got lucky in doing is we work with the Lucille Ball estate, and that movie that came out recently. We did. A lot of people don't know that Lucille, whenever she would go to parties, she would bring a tape recorder with her, and she would interview people. So she effectively, put out the one of the earliest podcasts. So we worked with her estate to kind of recreate that with the cast of the documentary, and we would zoom them into here. We'd have the producers, we have a proper board to record. We'd have the producers, the artists, and then we'd play part of actual Lucille Ball's question, record all those, and we put a whole package together for SiriusXM. So it's it's served more of a purpose than just a podcast trailer. So we've been really pleased with it so far.
I dig this. I feel so inspired. Katie, we need to get a Break the Business podcast trailer. You and me, we're going on tour with this thing, and we're just going to have a grand old time.
We're going to follow Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce all around.
Obviously.
You can join us. We'll be doing the same thing. We'll got one right over there across from
We'll
me.
hook our trailer right behind your trailer.
There you go.
And we'll just be making speaking of like parasocial fan relationships.
Like the last second, it's like, don't stalk celebrities. And we're like, no, it's fine. We'll just do.
No,
follow
it's
them on
okay
our-
when you have microphones. Then it's not stalking, it's content creating.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty intrigued by what you two are doing. I'm something of a stand-up comedy dork. I love stand-up comedians kind of in the same way I love musicians. I follow comedians. I love kind of scoping out new ones that are up and coming. It's kind of a fun hobby of mine. I'm a big fan of the medium, and I'm also pretty intrigued by how the medium has evolved in terms of how people watch comedy, right? I think back into the 80s and 90s, and the pinnacle of stand-up comedy was getting like an HBO special. You wanted to get that special on HBO. And then in like the 90s and 2000s, like it was more about like, I'm going to get my half-hour special on Comedy Central and maybe still try to get a special on HBO. And now these days, it seems like it's all about streaming services, right? It's Netflix. It's getting a Netflix special. It's getting a special on Amazon, or getting a 800-pound gorilla media to push your content out if you're somebody like Matt Rife. Can you talk a little bit about this evolution, how we went from basic cable to premium cable to now it's all streaming services?
Yeah, it's you're exactly right. It's definitely changed a ton. At one point, you're right. It used to be all about the HBO special or the Comedy Central special or something like that. Many times now, comics are putting out specials on their YouTube page, on our YouTube page. You're seeing some comics. We have one comic, Matt Rife, that has 30 million views between our page and his page. And so you put that up against some streaming numbers with even the Netflixes of the world, and you're competing with some of the biggest specials out there. And so it's really interesting to see, and the way that it's promoted. It used to be, to your point, how things have evolved. It used to be, I need to get on Johnny Carson.
And you're going to say Johnny Carson.
I need to get on the Tonight Show. I need to do this. Now it's, I need to get on Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn's podcast or Nate Bargatze's podcast. And so it's really changed a bunch.
Or even just, I need to get a TikTok that's gone viral. And
Sure.
I think that's pretty interesting in that what I've started to see in the last couple of years is that for an increasing number of comedians, the formula now for breaking as a stand-up comic is not trying to get on Johnny Carson, right? It is, I need a video of me on TikTok of either like my best 30-second bit or just me doing really good crowd work for 30 seconds in a TikTok video, and then make that go viral. And that's going to drive people to watch like my tight 10 or drive people to watch my special on YouTube. But talk a bit about like how the formula for breaking as a stand-up comedian has changed and how platforms like TikTok are now part of that formula.
Yeah, it's something that we've paid attention to early on. We started just as a record label. And even back then when we were doing audio only albums, we would keep a camera in the back of the room, mainly for ads. A lot of us came from music, and doing a lot of the hyper targeting and things like that they were doing way back in the MySpace days of music. We really found that nobody was really paying attention to that in comedy, but comedy flies through the internet way faster than music. So we had found that if we put up either a bit or maybe an animation or even creating a little trailer with that, and there's a link to listen more or view more. We have a trackable link that you can click on, and it'll put a list of all the platforms, and you can pick your favorite one. And what's nice about that is we gather enough data about the user, whoever's clicking on the link. So then we now have a fan base, or at least targeting metrics for that particular artist. So one of the things we had found is because of the way that people consume comedy, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, we're able to take that, find the comic more fans, and we've saw a lift in maybe a comic was doing one night at a show in Chicago, at a venue in Chicago, excuse me. Now they're doing two nights, or if they're doing 2 or 3 shows, maybe they've now moved into the theater. So it kind of goes back to the way of like, if there's however many options there are to consume something, somebody's going to be there, right? Even this podcast, you guys are everywhere. So there's going to be people that just listen to Spotify. They're going to find this podcast on Spotify. They might not know it's already also on SiriusXM or on YouTube or things like that. So knowing that, we just kind of leaned into, okay, well, what's the smartest way of doing that, and what's the best way of growing a comics fan base?
Yeah, that is an interesting phenomenon in all this. It used to be when you, as an independent content creator, it was all about trying to find an exclusive home for your content, right? If I can get like exclusively on one network, if I can be exclusively on SiriusXM, that's the way to do it. And now more and more, it's trying to be non-exclusive. It's trying to be on as many different platforms as possible, because people's viewing and listening habits are so diverse. And there are some people that only listen to satellite radio or only watch one particular streaming service, that if you want them to find you, you have to be in as many different places as possible. And so it sounds like that's kind of changing how you all have approached things at 800-Pound Gorilla, where, you seem to stress a lot more making your content as accessible as possible to people, rather than we need to put it behind a paywall. It's only going to be in one place for people to find it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We look at it as watching a movie in a different movie theater with a different audience. And so it can be on an artist's YouTube page. It can be on our YouTube page. We have a lot of content that are on YouTube. They're also on Hulu. We just licensed, I think, 23 specials to Hulu. So we're on all of these different platforms, because the audience, not everybody watches something on YouTube, just like not everybody watches on Netflix. They're going to all these different places. And also, we're also cutting things up so they work on Instagram or they work on Facebook, which promotes back to the special. So we're really reaching people where they are, instead of just expecting everybody just to come to us. So exactly what you're saying. It's so important to be everywhere.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the company that formed this philosophy. Interested in learning a little bit more about 800-Pound Gorilla. What motivated you all to start this company? What are some of your guiding principles?
Well, I think it was sort of born out of, we're a bunch of comedy nerds. And we had worked in music, and that can kind of be a little sticky at times. So
you don't say.
Yeah. So when we started this company, like I said, it started as an audio only company. It started small, and as we were to grow it, we thought, if we take the approach of what did we not like about working with all these other labels, and how can we attach that approach to the comics that we were managing. What did we want out of a record label that they weren't doing for us, which is mainly just how do you grow the comics fan base. So taking that approach kind of allowed us to throw all the rules out of the windows and start over. So we took a very unconventional approach to the build, and I think it's one of those things that if we would have followed the rules, we probably would have been a different company. But having that ability to go, what would I want out of a record label, and build it from there, kind of helped us grow into, started branching into video, because we would have the same conversations with our audio artists saying, hey, do you have any, do you guys get into video? Is there anything else you would do in video? We really like you guys. And we thought that was a great excuse to start building the video arm. And then we just kept expanding and expanding.
So you spoke about your music industry background, and when you said that, it reminded me of something I saw on your website where you talked about how the philosophy you guys have for promoting comedy specials was to use the same digital marketing practices that were already being done in the music industry and bringing them into comedy. And so I want to learn more about that. What was music doing that comedy wasn't doing that you all started to do?
It's mainly about just gathering data. Nothing really major. When you put an ad out, as you all well know, there's ways to see who's engaging with that ad, who isn't. So there's a way in music where if an artist isn't performing very well on Twitter or X and is performing well on Instagram, you can use those metrics to find out what's working. Let's throw more gas on that fire. What's not working on this platform? How do we change what we do there? And in comedy at the time, it was just, hey, let's post it and hope it goes viral, because it does. Comedy, we found, does travel differently through the internet. So you didn't have to necessarily put as much effort in there for it to spread like music would. And then finding out that if you did, you could really start to grow. Like there's an audience for every comic out there. It's just, you have to change your metrics on finding them. It's not the same approach works for every artist, but taking a lot of those principles and just seeing if they worked. Not all of them did. And the ones that did, we would just keep going and expounding on those. And the ones that didn't, we would just, adjust and start over.
Let me turn to some advice type questions here. I think by virtue of the kind of guests we have on this show, a lot of what we talk about on this program tends to be geared more toward independent musicians, but we're a celebration of all forms of indie creators. So since I have two stand-up comedy experts here, if you were talking to an aspiring stand-up comic who was, maybe has a tight 10 and is trying to, get more into this industry, maybe make some connections or just kind of build their name up, what would you tell an up-and-coming stand-up comedian right now in terms of advice to help them move forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if this is because you have a tight 10 and you want us to come on.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
happy to do that.
I'm glad that you noticed that I was trying to give an excuse for you to show off my tight 10.
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend, yeah.
The big thing is just to keep going, and so many comics that we talk to, that's one of the common denominators. Just stay out there and keep going, and keep putting out things. Keep on stage night after night after night. And so it's, no one comic, it feels like, makes it the same way. There's so many different ways to do it now. The way that Jerry Seinfeld did it is way different than a Matt Rife today. And so there's so many different things that you can think about, and the way that one person works, maybe that doesn't work for another person. And when we talk to comics, the biggest common denominator that we hear is, I just want to grow my audience. I don't really care as much. I want to make money, but that's not as primary to me as growing the audience. So how do I grow the audience? How do I get as many eyeballs as possible on my project? How do I reach more people? And so that's really the name of the game, is how do you do that? And so that's where we come in.
How much time do successful comedians today really should be working on their craft and trying to improve just their skill and the quality of their writing and their jokes? I ask this because I've found that I'm seeing this more and more with comedians on TikTok, where I will see a TikTok video of a comedian that has a really funny video that went viral because they just nailed somebody with a perfectly great piece of crowd work, or they just have one incredible joke that makes for like a great 90-second TikTok, and it will make me go watch their special. And then I watch their special, and basically, other than that one really good joke that they had, the rest of the special is just pretty weak. And so I think that's, maybe the critique that you'd have of that comedian is they focused a little too much on the promotion and on the TikTok and not as much on the core product to actually have great material throughout. Is this something you're seeing now more with the rise of like TikTok and its impact it can have on comedians?
Well, it's sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say that they've put too much emphasis on social media. That's kind of the name of the game, and that's usually it's looked more as like a fishing line. Not everybody that bites is going to get back to the well and really enjoy all the other things. But more importantly, it's about, if you're a stand-up, it's always about, being in the gym, constantly getting on stage, constantly working out your material, always getting better. The comics we work with are a range of, I'm just starting out to at the top of the game, if you will. And the ones that have been doing it for a while have been really successful. One of the most common denominators of those people is, I'm constantly working, I'm constantly out. We've done album tapings where Jerry Seinfeld will pop in as the opener, and the comic that will do the album taping is like, I didn't know he still does that. Like, even he's still constantly working and constantly working out. So one of the things that's beneficial about TikTok is, or any of the social media, is that you can get a clip out there that's really good and pull somebody over. Sometimes it's a closer. Oftentimes it's really strong bits that people put out. One of the downsides could possibly be that maybe the rest of the content isn't ready for a deep dive. If the one thing resonates with you, maybe those we see those people come back and then check out that comic later. Hey, I really like this bit, or they share it with a friend, and the friend does resonate with that content. So it's kind of a, I guess to answer your question, I think that you could just, if you constantly work on how do I keep making my craft better, but then more importantly, finding your voice and then amplifying your own voice in that, that's probably the best advice you could have.
Well, Katie, I would say that phenomenon is not going to be unique to stand-up comedy, right? I think a lot of artists could run in various media can run into that same issue. Like a musician could have one really good song that they oversaturate on social media at the expense of building a bigger catalog.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like it directly parallels music. I mean, with music, you tell musicians, go out, play your new song, see how the audience reacts. Like, if they're super into it, great. If they're not into it, try it a few more times, but maybe it's not resonating and it needs some tweaks. And then you can take it to social media and gauge the same reaction, right? Like, is it taking off? Is it not taking off? But I feel like you always have to be prepared when you're doing that, because if you put something together, whether it's a bit or a song, and then you put it out there and you have no follow-up to it at all whatsoever, then that's not good, because then people aren't going to continue to see your stuff. Or if the follow-ups just aren't hitting, you have to just know how to gauge, like, how can I keep doing what's working, and how can I adjust what I already have in the moment and quickly, so that I can follow the trend of what people are doing without, of course, sacrificing your integrity. I'm not suggesting people to just be like trend hopping, but I think that social media, it's a good opportunity to practice your skills and to get real-time feedback of like, oh, okay, when I did this, it worked. When I did this, it didn't. So what are some other ways I can work on these things and try it out and get closer to what I want my final product to be? But you have to be fast.
There is that for sure. And speaking of changing and evolving, I was pretty intrigued when I read that you all over at 800 Pound Gorilla Media are getting into the scripted TV business. You are re-releasing the first 3 seasons of the TV show Greg in LA and are going to be premiering the 4th season of that. Was getting into scripted television something that you always just saw as like a natural progression for your company, or is this kind of like a new thing where you're like, we got to pivot into this field because there's potential here?
It definitely became a natural progression. We started as a record label. We quickly became the record label for Netflix and for Kevin Hart's company and for all things comedy, which is Bill Burr and Al Madrigal. And then that led us to doing video specials. I think last year we did right around 35 to 40 video specials on all the different platforms. And as we're talking to comics throughout this, they started coming to us with other ideas, saying, hey, I've got this other thing, a scripted show, an unscripted show. There's something I already shot. Can you help me with this? And it did feel like, well, that's the next natural thing for us to do. And so Greg in LA was just something that a few people had sent to us. If you haven't seen it, it's on it started as an Instagram show, and it's also on YouTube. And they wrote the show intending on it being short pieces that were about 2 to 4 minutes, and they released it once a week. And they did 15 episodes, which is season 1. Same for season 2, same for season 3. And we just reached out and said, we like the show. We don't know what your plan is. Turns out they think a lot like we do. It's 2 guys, Gregory Lay and Sean Cunningham. And so they said, we're looking to do season 4. It'd be great if we had a partner to help us with marketing, a little bit of funding, and put some comics in the show. So that's what we're doing. So we've been working on that for the last couple of months, and we've got about another month or 2 to go of shooting. And then you're going to see us start to release that later this fall.
That's exciting. You can find out more about our guest work by visiting 800poundgorillamedia.com. Our guests have been Damian Greiman and Anthony Leo of 800 Pound Gorilla Media. This has been a blast, gentlemen. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys and hearing about the rise of this really cool company. Before we let you go, we got one last question. We'd love to get each of you to answer for us. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
That's the big one. Like, what's your favorite Beatles song? It seems like a hack kind of answer, but it really is just keep going. I think you've seen it in Emmy speech award acceptance speeches and stuff like that, where people are like, I thought I was going to quit and I was at the worst stage of my life and I kept going and here I am on it really is the best tip, is just keep trying to find your own voice and keep trying to do it the way that is best for you.
Yeah. I just say, don't overthink it. You can do amazing things with an iPhone. You don't need to spend a lot of money to create great content. If you've got a great idea, you can just go shoot something. You can have it up on YouTube. You can grow an audience on your own. And there's so much that you can do just by yourself, and you can grow that audience, and then that can lead to other things. And so we've seen that time and time again. And, that mixed with what Anthony said, I think those 2 things work.
Damian, Anthony, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Don't be a stranger, all right? We'd love to have you on again real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our thanks to Damian Greiman and Anthony Leo from 800 Pound Gorilla Media. Our thanks to Katie Zaccardi, producer Lauren. And thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.